Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. We are excited to have you join us today as we dive into condition monitoring secrets of high-performing plants. So we've got a great session planned. We look forward to sharing insights that you can put into action right away. My name is Amissa. I'm the Director of Engagement at UpTime Solutions. I'm also a certified maintenance and reliability professional, which gives me a unique perspective on how maintenance and reliability teams operate. And I'm going to be your host today and walk us through the webinar. So next slide. Before we dive in, let's quickly cover how to interact during the webinar. So if you have questions at any point, you can type them into the Q&A panel, and our speakers will address as many questions as possible during the session and in our Q&A time at the end. And then for general comments or reactions, feel free to use the chat. So we'd love to see where everyone's joining us from, and any quick thoughts or comments you want to share throughout the webinar, you can share them in the chat. So this way we can keep the conversation flowing and make sure all of your questions get answered. All right, next slide. So I am excited to introduce you to our featured expert speakers today, Matt and Brian. Brian, do you want to kick us off by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you and your background?
Sure. Thanks, Amissa. So yeah, I'm Brian. I'm the Vice President of Maintenance Programs here at UpTime. If you guys are joining, we've done lots of webinars in the past, Amissa and I. I'm very excited to continue that trend with UpTime and their absolute professional expert staff and team. It's amazing. I've been a wrench turner the majority of my life. I've been a maintenance manager, director of maintenance and reliability, maintenance executive, leading and building teams for a long time. I love all things maintenance, reliability, and people. And I'm very, very honored and excited to be with one of my good friends, Matt and Amissa, and the whole UpTime team to talk about all these great things for condition monitoring and maintenance and reliability. So thank you. And Matt, over to you.
Yeah, buddy, thanks for that. Amissa, thank you. Hi, everyone, and thanks for tuning in with us today. I'm Matt Knuth, the VP of Reliability Solutions here at UpTime. For the past 25 years, I've been heavily involved in condition monitoring, reliability, and industrial equipment repair, working with hundreds of major manufacturing and commercial facilities globally to solve their toughest challenges. I'm very excited to be here today. It's been a while since I've been on a podcast with these two pros, but I'm happy to have them on Team UpTime to start doing this together and bring you guys some great content. I really hope you guys gain some good insight into the world of condition monitoring and asset reliability.
Thanks, guys. So here is what we're going to cover today. We'll look at what makes top performing programs successful, how to turn your condition monitoring data into actionable insights. We're also going to go over how to avoid common pitfalls, and then also how to align your monitoring with your long-term reliability goals. So by the end, you'll have practical takeaways to improve your program. So now I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Matt and Brian to kick off the meat and potatoes of the webinar.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amissa. So we're going to talk about here why some programs succeed and others do not. So there's a big thing here in maintenance, and there's three kind of core functions here, and I'm going to kick it to Matt and let her rip.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Well, Amissa, this is a great first slide. Definitely a great place to start. So the first thing that comes to mind for me is, you've heard me say it before, is being data rich and insight poor. So this condition is a highly detrimental problem in modern condition monitoring. Right now, it's the paradox of having an overwhelming amount of data from sensors, yet lacking the ability to translate that data into anything meaningful, actionable information that is applied in what I like to say, which I think is highly critical, at the right place at the exact right time. Data without insight is just numbers. If you're using a large data set that is incomplete, or it's inaccurate, poorly structured, or any analysis you perform is going to lead to flawed conclusions. So again, as I like to say, more data does not equal more reliable. And to me, it's all about the quality of the data over the quantity. To me, that's paramount. Again, you've heard me say it a million times. You can't censor your way to reliability. And again, more data does not equal more reliable on its own. So it's about having the right people, the right expertise, as we're going to talk about today, sitting at the table together. Condition monitoring is a tactical tool set. I'm sure Brian is going to elaborate on that more. It supports reliability, but it's not synonymous with it, right? It provides signals. Reliability interprets those signals in a business relevant context. Again, it's all about just finishing up here on this slide. It's about people's tasks are shifting, right? To more analysis and less from the world I came from of data collection. So regardless of how you get that information or obtain that data, subject matter experts are going to be a part of that mix for the foreseeable future, because we need those people to interpret that data, use the real world experience that Brian talks about, and tell you what to do with that information that data gives you. You know, the last thing here is that we use the term differentiators, process, people, and culture. I like to say culture first, people second, and process third, because if we have a poor overall culture, or at least one that does not support reliability, a reliability culture, the people involved and affected will not, they're not going to subscribe to it. And poor processes will be the result. That's the bottom line. Brian?
Agree. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's very, in simple terms, reliability is achieved through action, and action is a force multiplier. And we'll talk about this more, but there is a substantial number of people employing, selling, utilizing condition-based monitoring that have that data, they have insights, they have all these great things, but they don't do anything with it, or they don't know what to do with it, or they don't know how to prioritize the information that they're getting to drive action, which ultimately will drive your inherent reliability. So all great things. Thank you so much, Matt. Okay, so what do top performers do differently? Well, if you guys know me, they do the fundamentals exceptionally well. There is no better place to start than getting in planning, scheduling, asset hierarchy, building relationships, interdepartmental alignment, aligning all the things you want with your maintenance and reliability function with the bigger business. So we want to build strong maintenance and reliability fundamentals first. It is absolutely paramount. I've seen every type of technology crash and burn when that fundamental block is not in place, because when you start hitting the gas, you've got to know where you're going and how to maintain that trajectory, right? And the fundamentals create that for your department or your organization. Another big thing is you need to engage the people who do the work. Ultimately, they're going to be impacted by technology, right? So if you're considering developing a condition-based monitoring program, before you do it, talk to the team, pull your lead guy in, pull your supervisor in, pull your planner in, pull your ops, your quality, your safety, bring all these people into the process early so that you can do a 360 and have a holistic understanding of where this thing needs to go and who it's going to benefit and where your value is going to come from. We'll talk more about that later, but bring people into the process. Let's drive that real value and engage and create that culture, as Matt had alluded to, right? And then another really big one, this is, what does good look like? What is the optimal vision for the technology or for your department? What does good look like? Very simple. And it's likely that when you start to establish what good looks like through your cross-departmental and interdepartmental teams, you're going to know what you don't want, right? What bad looks like. And then, of course, all these things need to be aligned with your business goals or your business outcomes. And the reason I make that point is because generally, if the bigger business has an overarching vision statement, mission statement, and you're aligning to that vision, mission statement, technically, you can't go wrong. You didn't create the vision and mission statement. You're merely aligning your goals and objectives with it. So the buy-in as you move up the chain of command generally can be a little bit easier for that to be accepted, right? So keep these three things in mind. Relentlessly attack the fundamentals. I like to say there's two main things in maintenance and reliability, and that is people, first thing, and the second thing is relentlessly hunting down defects, and we'll talk more about that, but all this has to be done first. All right, Matt.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on some of what Brian said there just to continue to hammer that point home. To me, top performing, whether it's a condition monitoring team or reliability teams, have, like Brian said, a clearly defined vision, mission, clearly defined goals, and a strategy. So let me unpack this for you a little bit, and it's going to take some honesty. It requires some serious honesty, as I like to say. So vision, Very simply, where is your condition monitoring program currently, and where does it need to be? Your mission, core purpose and objective of your program, right? Collaboration of all levels of plant operations to help determine that. Not just the vibe guy, not just a reliability guy, plant manager type of thing. Everybody, you're going to hear me say this several times today, is everybody needs a seat at that table. Strategies, right? Provide the right tools, training, and education. Not the same thing. But the tools, the training, the education, this is key. We're going to talk on that quite a bit as well today. Your goal, what's your desired results of the program? Again, collaboration of all levels of plant operations to determine this, right? Here's where the honesty piece comes in. What is realistic versus what is not? Getting down into implementation. So putting that plan into action and documenting. Documenting is huge. Brian had touched a little bit on that, but as I like to say, you need to make changes along the way. This is going to be, no matter if you've been doing this for 100 years or you're just getting into it, you need to document it. You need to make changes along the way. And if it's not working, simply lick your wounds and try again. Don't keep implementing the same things or trying the same thing, getting the same results, right? As I like to say, moving forward slowly is still forward movement. The other thing I want to add is ownership, right? Ownership, management, maintenance, reliability, even the IT department, especially now in the age of more IoT devices and technology, right? They do not speak the same language, which Brian and I will probably talk about in a few more slides, but I want to draw a parallel. Those of you that know me know I'm an aviation guy, so let me draw a parallel to that. So I like to ask people a question. You want to know why you make it safely from your home airports to your destination and back? It's not just because of the skill of the pilot, right? Or the skill of the A&Ps that are maintaining that stuff, but it's also due to a universal language. So the parallel in that is no matter where in the world you fly, what you're doing, all pilots speak one language, and that's the English language. That's not the type of language I'm talking about within the plants, right, Brian? I'm talking about like just being on the same board, having them same goals, having the same, looking for those same outcomes. So besides that, what else, right? Checklists and documented standard procedures. Think about this once, as I say, with over 100,000 flights operating daily, globally, how do you think things would turn out if everyone was speaking different languages to air traffic control or using different procedures on approaches or departures or in the air at cruising altitudes? It'd be a complete disaster, right? So why do we think our plants should operate any different? Now, with that said, we all heard the recent air disaster in the last couple of days, and then MD-11 went down in Kentucky 2 days ago. And I assure you, the NTSB report will not simply say left engine detached from wing causing accident. There will be a thorough failure analysis completed to identify and hopefully eliminate that from happening again. Brian, anything to add to that?
The key to what you said, and I am not in aviation. I've been around a lot of aircraft in the military, but the key, what I really picked up on what you said there, Matt, was there's going to be an analysis of the defect to make sure it doesn't happen again. That is the whole point of a long-term condition-based monitoring strategy, is continuous, as you said, improvement and iteration of our assets or components or parts to ensure that we get rid of defects long-term. So that's all great. And another thing too, I don't know anything about what you know, Matt, with aircraft, but I like to say the Southwest model is my ultimate example I give people about standardizing their processes. Southwest, all the planes are the same, all the parts are the same, all the training is the same, right? So if a plane goes down in Mississippi and they don't have the part there, you better believe the next airport over is going to have that part, right? Because everything is common and it's very, very important. Okay, we collect plenty of data, but how often does it drive action? We talked about action earlier, right? Action is the force multiplier. It's easy to get data. It's difficult to do something with it that's meaningful. Go ahead, Matt.
Boy, well, another great point, right? So data alone really rarely tells the whole story. again, going back to what we were saying about collaboration, cross-team collaboration. So by fostering that collaboration and breaking down data silos, different diverse perspectives are brought together, which is essential, right? For having comprehensive analysis, for transforming that raw data into meaningful and decisive action. So again, raw data when does that become actionable? Well, when it's filtered through the lens of expertise and real world context. This addresses that challenge and addresses the challenge that alerts or data points are only valuable if someone knows what they mean, right? And what to do next with those. For example, right, the context, I think Amissa has it here in the side, context, expertise, and actionable insights. So I'll just touch on that and turn it over to Brian, but the context provides the why and where behind the data. The expertise provides the what it means and what to do. And of course, the actionable insight is the result of combining that data, that context, and that expertise, right? And the goal of that is to give a clear, user-friendly conclusion that motivates a specific response. You mentioned continuous feedback loop here from detection, analysis, action. Well, that loop is closed by monitoring those results, right, of the action and collecting new data on its impact. So the new data then informs the next cycle of detection and analysis, leading to refinement and course corrections.
Bingo. Perfect. Well, very well said. I don't have much to add, Matt, but just an example. We look at data ingestion into your whatever maybe solution you're using for condition monitoring, or your CMMS, or some sort of PLC historian, or something, right? Or your ignition, SCADA, whatever it is, right? You're pushing data into these platforms. The insight is very, very valuable from a cross-functional collaboration, because if I'm the maintenance manager and I'm looking at data coming into these systems, I'm looking at it through the lens of resources. I got to get people around to do the work, right? I got to understand what's going on. I got to talk to operations. I got to get parts. I got to do all this stuff, right? Your reliability engineer or your condition monitoring engineer is looking at it like, okay, how do I identify this specific defect and then start eliminating this defect, right? Everything goes hand in hand. And through that collaboration and that individual expertise, then you have a much better chance of driving a efficient and actionable action, right? To create and drive that inherent reliability from that particular asset or part or machine, right? So that's why it's so important that context and expertise is so important. It's unlikely that systems that are just left to their own devices to push out alerts and things like that are going to drive any value if there isn't a human or some sort of expertise reviewing that data, understanding the context associated with the alert and whatever it is, and then driving all the resources around that to do something about it. So that's all good things. Okay, even great programs hit roadblocks. What are common ones? I know I have hit plenty when it comes to even just a small route-based condition monitoring program. There's always something, right? There's always a bottleneck or something that needs to be hurdled. So the biggest thing, right? We have consequences of alert overload. And I'm sure a lot of people listening understand what I'm saying. You have something set up, probably poorly set up, where it's just pinging you, whether it's a corrective work order that's generating in your CMMS, or it's an alarm, or it's your monitoring solution that you're looking at data in. And it's just going bang, 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 problem, problem, problem. No context, no definitive understanding of what the problem is. It's just telling you that there is a problem or a potential problem. So what happens is this happens continually over and over and over again, and you become desensitized to it. So if all of you in manufacturing and maintenance and reliability, you understand the context when I say, if you have PLC-driven machines and maybe you have a photo eye that gets out of adjustment, and every time something goes past it, it throws a light on and says, oh, there's a problem. But it actually isn't a problem. You just need to adjust your photo eye and you can continue operating. Well, that light is going to be ignored if it keeps happening over and over and over again. The operator is just going to hit reset, run, 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 reset, run, 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 reset, run, run, run. Okay, so alert fatigue kills the valuable understanding of your setup. This is a huge one. No failure understanding. We're chasing symptoms for the sake of chasing symptoms. But it's a double-edged sword because we create the technology and employ the technology to get rid of defects. But we're not. A lot of people don't get rid of defects. They chase symptoms associated with defects. You need to chase those symptoms down, figure out what the symptom is, what's the failure mode or failure mechanism associated with that symptom, eliminate it, get rid of it, move on, right? And then eliminating defects creates reliability, not just finding them. Finding them is great. That's what we do. But as we said before, you have to do something about it. And if you don't have the expertise, you got to find people who do have the expertise to understand, okay, I keep having this interrace defect on this bearing. Okay, oh, maybe the axial load is too much. Maybe the RPM is too much. Maybe I'm not greasing it correctly. Maybe it's been hammered on. And Matt and I were talking about this yesterday. Maybe it was hammered on with a sledgehammer and not heated up and slid on, correctly as a slip fit or press fit bearing. So you've got to dig in. And, the alerts of just the bing, 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 bing will kill you. And it kills credibility. And everybody will say the same thing, operators and all. They all do it. You got anything to add, Matt?
No, man, you really hit that home. I think the biggest thing is like what I heard was you have to dig in. And in this day and age, digging in means time. And I think the problem is a lot of people don't have that time, but they have to fight for that time.
Yes.
Or we're just going to sit in that reactive mode, or like you said, alert fatigue. And eventually it's going to be like that boy who cried wolf, and you're going to miss that thing because you've seen it, be a false alarm for so long. I mean, we could talk about any number of scenarios, right? But you have to dig in. These things do not
solve
themselves or create themselves, right? It takes work. You got to put in the work.
Hey, that's my favorite saying. You know that. Do the work.
I heard it somewhere before.
Just do the work.
Do the work, man.
All right. Common mistakes that derail programs. Go ahead, Matt.
Oh man, so this is a great slide. I was looking at this the last couple of days, and I'm thinking, boy, I could talk on this webinar for an hour on this alone. So I'm just going to hit on 4 or 5 key things that I have notes here on. One, lack of or having poor leadership. Most people don't think of leadership in like condition monitoring programs or any of that thing, but I'm going to touch on that quickly. Lack of training and understanding. I told you I was going to beat that to death. Again, lack of cross-functional teams. And one of the main things to that is again, lack of communication, right? That comes with that if you don't have that. We're talking a little bit about implementation without purpose, and then what they call the magpie syndrome. So number one to me is leadership, right? So poor leadership is going to lead to a lack of vision, a lack of goals, organizational alignment, trust, expectations, and probably another 24 things, right? Needed resources. And one of the biggest things that a lot of Brian and I and a lot of our friends, our colleagues in industry throughout the country talk about is employee retention, right? In those key roles. So, which leads me to that, what I call the next man up mentality. So if you don't have that retention, so say an analyst leaves or retires out, right? What I've seen in my career a lot of times, which led to that, the demise of a lot of these programs, is it's the next senior person brought up. Now, whether that's, a seniority thing, union, whatever, that's irrelevant. It's just next person brought in, right? Given some tech and told, go figure it out, right? Use the software, use all the dummy stuff, and you'll be just fine. Well, when you do that, when you operate in this next man up mentality and this figure it out, the program really becomes stuck in what I call perpetual mediocrity. You just sit there and sit there and sit there, right? And I'm not saying it's easy to get out of that, especially when you have employees not staying for more than 2 to 4 years nowadays. I mean, that is the average tenure, right? So how do you continue to implement this stuff, improve, sustain, and maintain that kind of high level operating standard? Well, when you stay on that hamster wheel like that, you don't. So moving on to a lack of training and understanding. So a lack of training, education, understanding, again, fundamentally undermines the effectiveness of a condition monitoring program, right? Plain and simple, period, full stop. It's turning what should be a cost-saving strategy into costly, unreliable data collection exercise. That's it. The negative effects span across not only the collection of the data, the analysis of the data, and more importantly, which Brian could touch on, is the maintenance reliability execution, right? I mean, that's really what we want these condition monitoring programs to do is again, work hand in hand with that. And if that side of it's poor, well, then the maintenance reliability execution is obviously going to lead to missed failures, false alarms, and poor resource utilization. Again, I'll try to move through this quickly. I don't want to take up too much time, but that lack of cross-functional teams leading to a lack of communication. So again, in an absence of that, communication and coordination between departments is going to suffer. Siloed teams, that's typically what I've seen. I haven't been in a maintenance manager position like Brian, but of course I've worked with many of hundreds of plants, been in there and seen these things operate, these teams operate in silos, and how that just kind of just brings everything to a screeching halt, or again, missed opportunities from not collaborating, right? Another big thing I'd like to say here is if each department doesn't understand the other's function, it's going to breed mistrust, right? Brian, how many times have you seen that? So reliability engineers might see condition monitoring people as fixers, while the condition monitoring teams might view reliability as solely these people that sit in their office doing math equations and studying theoretical models. So we all know the struggles with that, right? But simply, we need to understand each other's strengths, weaknesses, and how to collaborate, right, to achieve the reliability goal. Implementation without purpose. This is very quickly easy for me, right? It's without a clear purpose, defined goals and objectives, it just becomes, like I said previously, expensive, resource draining, and delivers zero value, right? So wasted technology investment, data overload, bloated maintenance backlogs due to that, inconsistent metrics, and cultural resistance to it, right? Goes back to that culture thing that we started off saying. The magpie syndrome, that's kind of like the newest thing in the last 15 years or more with the technology. Technology is great. It's the most exciting time to be in condition monitoring. There's so much cool stuff out there, but unfortunately, some people interpret what I say as like, Knuth, he's against this, he's against that. I'm not, man. I use it all. I love it all. But you don't want to get stuck in what our colleague Jeremy always says is pilot purgatory, the graveyard of ideas, or shiny object syndrome, chasing that shiny tech based on wild ROI and marketing claims, right? This puts your program at a disadvantage right from the jump. Brian?
Yeah, but when I look at all these, the first thing that comes to my mind is allowing your condition-based monitoring program to be your run to failure strategy. And what that means is you have this idea or this thought process where we have technology so we can be effective or efficient, right? Using vibration as an example. Vibration, you get a spectrum and you see this waveform and you notice this defect, right? The data says that there's this defect. You show up, team shows up, they rip that gearbox out, they do all this work, resources, spares, labor, downtime, all this stuff, right? And then you take that gearbox and you throw it in a dumpster. You've now wasted all those resources by throwing that gearbox in the dumpster. That is essentially what everybody does. Run to failure. We're letting condition monitoring give us information, then we just run to failure. Now, if you were to take that gearbox and send it off to somebody or do an analysis on that gearbox, understand what the actual failure mechanism was, now you're creating value. And now you can look ahead and you can say, hey, this bearing's not cutting it. Or, hey, the way we're operating this is not cutting it based on the actual failure analysis that we've done on this machine, right? So keep that in mind. And this magpie syndrome, as Matt said, is everywhere. Jason, I love technology too. It's great and it's amazing. But the problem is that people view it as an easy button. I don't have to plan and schedule because I can just do this. Or this is really hard, so I'm just going to hit this button and buy this technology. And then like clockwork, a year or 6 months, maybe even sooner, that down the road, you're going, I'm still failing at everything, but I've got all this cool technology that I keep paying for every single month, and I'm not getting any availability out of my assets, right? So view technology as an enabler of people, an enabler of expertise, not as a easy button to eliminate the latter, right? So super important. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record with this. So success comes from clarity, consistency, collaboration. I mean, there it is, right? So how to sustain or how to avoid these mistakes. Again, we could talk for days on that, but to me, there's 5 key areas to sustain, and I'll use that term, a world-class condition monitoring program. Again, the right people. And what I mean by that is people who have skin in the game, people who buy into the vision and mission of that program. Like we spoke about, and who want to be a part of it, right? Bring people in who want to be a part of it, who want to learn, who want to go to classes and learn about, whether it's vibration training, ultrasonic training, motion amplification, SMRP, whatever, right? To keep them on top of it, the stuff that where the real choices, where the knowledge to come in and make these, to make great informed decisions come from. Again, kind of piggybacking on that is appoint a champion. I'm a guy who's big on appointing a champion, right? The person, the guy, the girl, the woman who will take ownership and lead that program out. Record your successes. I mean, that's a big thing. So much talk is on ROI of this and ROI of that, but what about just simply recording your successes, right? What that program has done to help Brian's maintenance and reliability team, to help have less, what's the word I'm looking for, Brian, like less spares in stock, or moving away from certain PMs into more condition-based stuff, use that. I know ROI is out there. It's in every condition monitoring marketing ad out there, and for good reason, because they love having meetings about that stuff up top, and I get that. But really record those record your success. But also you got to remember, you can't have one without the other. You got to record your failures, right, as well, because that's that honesty part I talk about. It has great value. It provides documented information to either people coming up behind you or new people at the top making those decisions. Again, it allows you to say, hold up, we tried that, it failed, and here's why. Let's look at something else, right? Again, you don't want to get in that hamster wheel of mediocrity and just that pilot purgatory or any of that nonsense. So education mentoring goes without saying. Invest in your people, right? Invest in your people. Give them proper tools and training, and watch what happens. Management support is huge. Of course, without this, you're DOA. If you don't have the buy-in from the top, you're dead. And that's why the first 4 are key, right? You need that buy-in, because if you don't have them in your corner, and you don't have access to that vault to keep funding that training and funding those programs, that program will just tank right down. Brian?
Agree. I think just two things from me. Looking at the investing in training and clear ownership, right? I can't recommend developing a RACI chart more in these circumstances, right? Responsibility, accountability, consult and inform chart on all the different processes that you're trying to leverage, not just from a condition monitoring standpoint, but from a maintenance, reliability, all those things, right? People got to know what they're supposed to do. What do I own, right? Who should I talk to if I have trouble? Giving clear ownership makes people want to be involved. This is my thing. I'm responsible for it. I want to do it. I want to do the right thing. And I also know through our RACIs and through our collaboration that if I fall on something or I have an issue, I know who to talk to, right? And those things should be defined early, which is super important. And talking about, the start small, learn fast, and scale smart. And then I'm kind of tying the two together with every technology design or decision to a reliability outcome is, here's an example. If you take just one data point from your condition monitoring program and it eliminates the need to do 2 PMs on an asset, you win. You won. You've done the fundamental excellence of a condition monitoring program. You've created iteration in your preventive maintenance strategy, and you've eliminated waste, and you've eliminated the need for resources because you're using the data to drive an action. So the small wins are great. Share them with the team. Share them with leadership. Hey, We found, give the credit to the person who, like the analysis or the analyst or somebody, right? Hey, this guy found that this was an issue. And because of that, we're able to change this. And now we've eliminated 20 hours of PMs a month because that defect doesn't exist anymore. Those implications are huge for the maintenance and reliability department. So, do those things, create those RACEs, learn from the issues that are happening, take those small wins and show that they are massively valuable for a holistic organization. Okay. How can monitoring drive long-term reliability? I touched on it a lot, and I'm probably going to say a lot of the same things again. Okay. Make your condition monitoring strategy driver, make it a driver and not a standalone effort, right? Strategic driver. So big thing here. Connect your CBM to defect elimination, design improvements, capacity, and safety. Here are my two examples. You have X machine that is experiencing these failures because that was the way it was designed. Remember, reliability is inherent to the design. You cannot improve the reliability of an asset beyond its design unless you change the design, right? So we're using condition monitoring information to make improvements. So I have X machine that has this particular failure. Okay, I realize that's the failure. I get rid of it through whatever process. It's gone now. I don't have to deal with it anymore, right? I've changed the design. The iterative of defect elimination is super important too. Maybe I have a large manufacturing facility and we're going to open a second manufacturing facility. And I know the failure modes of my particular assets and leadership wants to duplicate those assets. Well, we should make sure that we iterate and design those assets, design those failure modes out of that asset. So now all of your progressive plants as you move into the future become more reliable from an asset specific basis. And here's my last example for this first one is safety. If you run a manufacturing facility or a plant or whatever it is, and there's a preventive maintenance task or a corrective maintenance task that is inherently dangerous, meaning you have to get permits for working at heights or confined spaces or noxious fumes or whatever, and you can monitor that asset remotely, condition monitoring, you're eliminating a ton of risk. As long as you can maintain the standard, you're eliminating a ton of risk. There's all different types. You've got to make it this whole long-term effort. And in the process of this first bullet here, you're going to have a lot of collaboration with teams, which is super, super important. And it goes, I kind of mixed the first two together here, but integrate values across EHS. So we call it value stream analysis, right? If I do A with my reliability or my condition monitoring or my maintenance function, how's it going to impact environmental health and safety? And how's that going to impact quality? And how's that going to impact the operation? And how's that going to impact engineering, right? When you draw those correlations and understand that value stream, it's 10 times easier to get that buy-in that Matt was talking about on that last slide. Because now everybody's got skin in the game. That is the key. Reliability is everybody's duty. Everyone, plant manager, engineer, guy who mops the floor, maintenance manager, operator, they are all responsible for a reliable plant. And as our great mentor, Ron Moore, has said, that a reliable plant is a safe plant. Okay, keep that in mind. And when all departments are aligned, reliability becomes sustainable, 100%. We're all in lockstep. We all know a common goal and a common good. We're going to move towards that goal, especially when everybody is involved, everybody's ideas are accepted and understood, right? Whether you go with them or not, right? It's just the fact of getting everybody's information out there in the air. And the likelihood of you seeing a much stronger reliability process and a much more sustained reliability process. Matt, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I'm a numbers guy, so it's kind of like I came across an old presentation that I did a couple years ago, and in preparation for this, and I think some of these numbers really drive home what you were talking about with the last two slides. So the numbers I had researched are 90% of RCM programs initiated are never successfully implemented. 60% of TPM programs fail after first 3 years. 98% of 5S programs over past 15 years failed. 70% of Industry 4.0 initiatives fail, meaning desired results not met. 60% of PM tasks are adding little to no value. 69% of maintenance costs are preventable with better design and engineering. 30% of reliability issues are due to machines running outside of design spec. That I can tell you, I know that number is probably low from my
That's low.
25 years in the field and doing constant diagnoses of older paper machines being run faster, extrusion machines being run out of design spec, all that kind of stuff. And another one that was fascinating to me is 86% of manufacturers do not use life cycle cost models. So I think a lot of that kind of comes into what Brian's saying, and maybe these numbers can maybe Brian can tell me I'm completely nuts or somebody in the audience, but regardless, even if those numbers are remotely close, it's I think a lot of that can be eliminated through what these things that Brian's talking about.
And these are all fundamental things. They're not things that you need to have all kinds of crazy knowledge or consultants or whatever, right? These are basic things that help eliminate a lot of these problems. And I'm just going to quote a good friend of mine and Matt's good friend, George Williams. And, he said something, we're always willing to trade away tomorrow's reliability for today's production. And that is, George is a great friend of mine and Matt as well. And that is like one of the smartest things that anybody has ever said, because it's true. We talk about operating machines out of context just to get that little bit more right. But the failure modes associated with doing that outweigh your 10 more units off the line, right? So all good things. All right. Collaboration is the glue. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I'm still chuckling about, that last thing, today's production, like you were saying, it's like, I don't know how many times I fought that battle, right? I put up a thing I designed on LinkedIn about 5 years ago, and it was Daffy Duck and the rabbit. They were sitting there in maintenance problem, tearing it off the tree, right? Maintenance problem or mechanical problem, electrical problem, mechanical problem, electrical problem. It's the same thing with like maintenance production, right? It seems like that battle's been roaring for, oh man, God knows how long.
That's a leadership failure.
Oh yeah, for sure. No doubt about it. Anyways, collaboration is the glue. Yeah, this one I know I've been long-winded today, but I can keep this one really short. What more can you say? Reliability and condition monitoring departments share a core commonality, right? In my opinion, optimize the performance and lifespan of their plant's assets. Again, this comes down to leadership, communication, teamwork, documented standards, and fostering a reliability mentality, right? So the effectiveness of that collaboration depends on just those things: clear communication, defined roles, responsibilities, and a shared commitment, right? The shared commitment to achieving common goals. Work together, reliability engineers, maintenance personnel, condition monitoring people. Well, the name of the game is try to ensure the smooth operation and maximum uptime, right? And extended, again, like I said, they had an extended lifespan of their critical assets.
Yeah, and one thing you guys can, if you're listening, you can start to fool with and measure to see the impact is a metric called RAV, replacement asset value, right? So you take the initial purchase price of the machine, including like commissioning and all that type of stuff. You look at that number, and then as you're generating corrective, reactive, emergency, preventive work against that asset, you track those costs against that asset, right? And I'm not going to speak to the benchmark or whatever it is, but once you get to a certain percentage of maintaining costs against the replacement asset of a machine, a lot of times it doesn't make sense to maintain that machine anymore to the standard that you originally did, right? So condition monitoring and this collaboration and all these things help keep the maintaining costs of assets in line with their contextual value. And the last thing I will say, I'm sticking to the quoted bangers here. I don't know who said this one, but there's a saying. It says, look in the mirror for the only solution that works. And that is to anybody who is a maintenance leader, a reliability leader, anything. If you got a bunch of problems in your department, look in the mirror, because 99% of problems are leadership problems. Get up, do the work, build the relationships, and drive your team to success, and celebrate every single win that you possibly can. look in the mirror. I tried to do it when I was a young maintenance manager. I was like, oh my God, all these problems. What am I going to do? It's that guy's fault. It's this guy's fault. It's that guy's fault. In the end of the day, I own it. I fix it. We get better. We move forward and we do the right things. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to reference something here. You know, our friend Dean in the chat here says, Matt, I agree. Always someone wanting to point fingers. Man, you know, I've said that for years. A lot of times, being a vibration analyst or anybody in condition monitoring as an outside contractor or in-house, it's a lot like being a cop, right? When you find something, everybody loves you, but if something fails, you're the first scapegoat. They're coming right to you. A lot of times, there was times where I felt coming in as an outside contractor, like I was brought in just simply to be that scapegoat. Like I would just get, and anybody in here, I mean, they're probably shaking their heads, you know, behind the screen, like getting calls at like 3 a.m, like, hey, we had this failure. Well, what's the failure? Well, the motor seized up. The motor seized up. Okay. And then, you know, you're making this rush, you're driving 3 hours, going, check this out. And here it was, a winding blew, right? And everybody's pointing fingers, knee-jerk reactions. It was an electrical winding issue. It wasn't a bearing issue. So it's like, it was not a failure of the condition monitoring thing, or somebody who put a roll, you know, where you're running water into it, and that fitting broke and sprayed water all over an MCC. It's like, well, that was just a bad design. Like, why would you design electrical equipment right next to a high pressure water hose and then blame the vibe guy who's not checking something like that? So Dean makes a great point there, man. It's like and that's a culture and that's a leadership thing. Good leadership wouldn't allow them conversations to happen. It would be, hey, let's get Matt on the line, or whoever our vibration person is. Let's get these people on the line. Let's get together and have a meeting. Let's not have this knee jerk and start pointing fingers and making everybody get all nuts at 3 a.m. Right? It's like, let's figure this out. And again, that comes down to what leadership.
Yeah, you just jogged a memory of mine when I became the head of maintenance for a food manufacturer. And you know me well, Matt. I am quite a culture shock when I show up places, particularly in the realms of maintenance and reliability. But I met with the entire maintenance function, and you know, a lot of them were great, and some were operations this, safety that, blah 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 blah, right? And my immediate every single time is, before I point my finger outside of this department, I'm going to thoroughly point it inside this department, because it's not our place to start blaming when we have to make our own bed first, right? So if you're a maintenance leader out there and you have these strifes with operations, it's your job to make those things right, to help the maintenance team understand that we've got problems we need to solve. And I'm going to be the leader, and I'm going to go try to build the relationships with the departments that we need to build relationships with. Because if they see you do it, it's likely that the maintenance team will follow suit and work with operations or quality or safety in the same regard. Okay.
Yeah, we could sit and tell stories all day long, you know, but going back to that passing blame, or like I had said, the next man up, like, you know, and this isn't a dig on anybody, but like I give my kids a lot of crap sometimes, you know, and it's always, I have 2 young boys, 2 years apart, and it's always monkey see, monkey do. And I'm always like, you know, the main thing I'm like, you guys need to do is that we need to make sure the first monkey's smart, right? And but that's never the case when you got a 7 and a 9-year-old boy, right? I mean, you have children, you know how that goes. So case in point, I was telling Brian the other day that when I was working for a company here in Wisconsin, we had one of the facets of that company was motor repair, right? So we had a large customer who had like a 350, 450 horsepower motor running a big fan, direct drive, 2 pillow block bearings. And like every 5 months, this asset would fail, and they'd have to, you know, take off the side of the building or the roof or whatever, come in with a crane. Costs a lot of money. So after the 3rd time, you know, it was one of these where they were like, "Oh, the customer is always right," which is not a bad, you know, way to conduct business, right? But somebody should have said long before I got involved, like, why is this happening? What keeps going? So I'm like, I'm going to drive over there. So after the 3rd time, I'm like, that we were paying for these repairs and different things. I'm like, I'm going to go over there and check this out. So I was telling Brian this. I get on site, right? Case in point, and here's 6 maintenance guys with a fault grid type coupling, and they're beating this thing on with mauls, one on each side. Boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, dudes, what are we doing here? And they're like, well, we're getting this coupling on. And that wasn't their fault. I didn't rip on these guys. I didn't do nothing. It was like, that's how they were taught, right? And that's that cycle that I was talking about. I'm like, go get me a torch, get me a temp stick, and let me show you how we do this, right? So we're not preloading these bearings that were obviously preloaded and then failed like 6 months later. So it's that kind of stuff. Like, hey, let's not point fingers. Let's not say, hey, that was dumb. Let's review that and let's refine those practices, right?
Bingo. So Q&A. We have some preloaded questions in here. We'll try to run through real quick. We've got like 8 minutes. What's the one action maintenance and reliability teams should take right now to make the biggest impact on their program? Matt and I, we talked, we agree. The most important thing you can do right now is get up, go across the hall or wherever you got to go, find the other departments that are in your plant, your building, and say, how can we work together? How can I help you? What can I do for you? What problems and goals and things of ours align together? How do we work together? What do we got to do? Right? That's probably not what you thought we were going to say, but that's probably the most impactful thing you can do right out of the jump. Matt?
Nothing to add. Nope, that's perfect. I agree.
Okay. How do we decide which assets to monitor first and get the most value? Do you want to take this one, Matt, or you want me to give my 5 cents?
I don't want to, because that's one of those loaded questions, right? And it's like ask 100 millwrights how to grease a bearing, get 100 in. I have my ideas and we've discussed this, but I think it would do a better service to hear from your side of the fence, from the maintenance reliability side on that, so, and what outcomes you can get, better outcomes you can get by looking at it like that.
Sure. Yeah. So there's a couple ways to do this. The most conventional way is, what assets pose the biggest risk to my production right now if it were to fail, right? Sometimes, if you go a little bit further, you understand, the standby labor associated, the spares associated, the impact to quality, the impact to EHS, all that stuff, which is all very, very important things to base some of that criticality on for your assets. But to take it a little deeper, you start looking at what failure modes or mechanisms drive that downtime. And you can use a process called risk priority number, which is looking at the severity, occurrence, and the ability to detect the failure mode. And you can rank those failure modes based on a numerical grade to determine what you should be paying attention to. But those are 2 ways. The first way is like generally what everybody does. But if you really want to hone it in and get real effective in what you should be monitoring, then looking at that risk priority number is very, very valuable. You want to add anything, Matt?
No, I think in the interest of time, we'll stick with that. That's very helpful.
Right on. Okay. What's the best way for condition monitoring data to impact our existing maintenance first workflows? You want to go, Matt?
Well, again, this is one we could go down a rabbit hole on, but for me is taking that data and using it more than just getting that from your analyst or whatever, saying, hey, you got to replace that bearing, right? I mean, let's dig deeper into that. So to me, the best way is to get that information into integrating it seamlessly into whatever you're using, your CMMS, your EAM, your APM. That's a world I'm not going to talk on. But you want to use that data to transform your approach, right? From reactive to time-based, from reactive to proactive, or time-based, condition-based actions, making your workflow just more proactive for you, right? I mean,
yep.
And you got to really look at that data, right? I mean, being told, putting on my analyst hat, like being told, like finding something and being told like, oh, hey, it's probably going to fail in a week. That's still reactive to me, right? You got to strive to do better. Like, how can we detect these sooner? How can we make sure that, Amissa's going to start laughing, so I'm going to bring up the pulp and paper industry because I'm from Wisconsin, but, some of these older machines, you detect something and you say, I only got a month or 2 left. And all of a sudden you're not communicating with the stores. Well, these bearings need to get retooled, and the lead time might be 18 months. Go have that conversation with your plant manager. Right.
Bingo. Bingo. I mean, that is, spare parts management, resource management, condition monitoring can impact tremendously. resources just in general, from manpower to parts to lead times to all that. I mean, that, yeah, well said. I mean, that is the biggest thing, right? Okay. Have you seen a shift during a program from reactive to proactive culture in your experience? How long did it take? I'll go first. Yes. And it was when I took over a coal and petcoke facility in Louisiana. And we would unload ships, we would unload barges. And with coal and petcoke, we would stockpile it, and then we would load out ships to then go overseas, with that coal and that petcoke. And when I took over that facility as the head of maintenance, they had gotten into a very long years of rut of like just hire contractors to do all the work, even though they employed a ton of maintenance people. The maintenance people essentially did nothing. Um, the first thing I did is I got rid of all the contractors, and we started doing all the right things. But one of the big things was active leadership, actually going out and doing the work with the team and showing them why it's important to do things the right way, and explaining that we are the biggest variable, the way we can induce defects into machines in our work by having poor work processes, poor parts, poor tools, all those things. And just by, establishing some strong leadership, giving leadership to those who really wanted to do the right things, we were able to eliminate a lot of human-induced defects that we're eating our lunch every day just by doing the right work and at the right time with the right tools, with the right SOP, and not inducing defects. So it took a few months, but that was it. That's a simple example, but there are a lot of them. Go ahead, Matt.
I really don't have much to add to that. I mean, the answer would be a resounding yes, of course. It comes in stages, like you're saying, go from reactive to proactive, and then going back to what I was saying about, okay, now you're proactive, but now let's fine tune that, right? Like and that comes in with the leadership, the training, the people, the skin in the game, the people that want to be there, not just celebrating, being that firefighter, right? Or saying, hey, we found this, but it didn't really give us any time, right? So why not? Let's look at that. Let's refine this a little bit. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing when you see it happen. It's like when that light bulb comes on, when you're in this industry for a long time, sometimes you get into that, you get complacent where you feel like, well, doesn't everybody do this now? Like, are we like, doesn't everybody like understand the benefits of simply laser aligning a motor or condition monitoring programs or, whatever it is? And no. So when you get to work, get in these plants and work with folks and get them moving in that right direction, like I said, even slow progress is progress, right? So it's great. It's great to see. And as far as how much time, who knows? Again, that there are a lot of variables there, but some very quickly, some get it very quickly, and some it's a hard sell. It's a hard rollout.
Yeah, and I always like to tell too, a lot of teams, I've said this, is the things that separate good from great are little things. They're not big things.
Mm-hmm. That's the truth.
All right, guys, we are running up on time, so let's hit the last slides here. So key takeaways for the webinar, everyone. What I heard is that top performers build fundamentals before tech. Data must lead to decisions, not just having tech for tech's sake and dashboards. Avoiding alert overload, and then aligning CBM with your business and reliability goals.
All right.
And we really appreciate you all being here. And before we wrap up, we have a few notes to share with you.
Oh, sorry.
All right. So if the recording is going to be sent out after the webinar today, I am just going to put a little plug from UpTime, since we are UpTime. We have our Up Now pilot program, which includes 60 of our 3-in-1 sensors for 60 days. It's only $2,500. We do the install, and you get expert consultation along the way with Brian or Matt. So if that's something you're interested in, you can email us. We can help you out, get you with the resources you need. I did put links in the chat, so if you want to email us or ask questions, feel free to do so. There's a link to learn more about the pilot program there as well. And then, yeah, we really appreciate you all coming. And be on the lookout for invites to future expert-led webinars. So thank you, everybody. And we hope you found value out of all of this.
And also, if you're joining us from the southern states, Brian and I will be down in, where are we gonna be? Greenville, South Carolina.
Yep.
With our friends at Reliability X and Digital Thinker putting on a workshop, where we work with the individual folks that come into that, and it's kind of like a round robin, and we help them out with any of their maintenance, reliability needs, condition monitoring questions, and just have that, one-on-one. So this will be the third one that we do, and it's exciting stuff. So if you're in that area, reach out and maybe we'll see you there too.
All right. Thanks, guys. And thank you
Thank
everyone that
you.
attended.
Thank you so much.